This is Extra Points, a Pop Warner podcast. I'm your host, Tim Glaze. We're sharing some of the most compelling stories in sports. On this episode, we chat with a guy who helped shape the wide receiver position. He spent most of his career with the Vikings. Here's Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Cris, thank you for joining us today. I'd just like to start off with just asking what you're up to these days and how you're spending your time.
Well, I spend most of my time in Boca Raton, Florida. I've been a resident here for over 30 years, and the last 2.5 seasons, I've been able to work closely with Florida Atlantic football and their football department and their athletic program. So it's been very, very good. I'm part of this community and the student athletes with the portal and all the other things that are changing the NCAA. So it's nice to be able to speak into young people's lives and give them advice. Especially I know a lot of the businesses and a lot of the people, the movers and shakers here in Boca Raton. So introducing, interfacing, creating opportunities that they might be able to shadow professionals and ultimately internships and try to create a relationship so they can create a career for themselves. I teach them, everyone's still going to need a job, even if you do go pro. So let's build these relationships with opportunity that can change your life. You can make more money in a 40-year career than you can trying in the NFL when the average career over the last 40 years has been 3.5 years. So that's where I've been involved, spent most of my time, still do a lot of charity work in the Twin Cities, especially in Minneapolis with Salvation Army, fighting against homelessness, fighting against alcoholism, drug addiction in that tri-state area there, because they've been very, very good to me. Those are the things that keep me very, very busy. Got a couple dogs, love to play golf. And I'm always either teaching, doing camps, mentoring young football players, either NFL guys now, guys trying to get in the NFL, high school players trying to get D1, guys trying to get out D1 into the pros.
Okay, you mentioned that your work with FAU with current college kids, and you were in college once before you went to Ohio State. So how much is that experience that you think as a college kid, and how much does that transfer to what you're doing now? Or is this an evolution of Cris Carter?
Well, everything is a snapshot. I'm one of the rare people that's been in the situation that they've been in. I've been recruited, you know, visited a lot of schools, had the opportunity to go to any school I wanted to in the country, chose Ohio State, being from Ohio. So understanding that process, understanding the academics, how important they were. I majored in communications, radio and television. I had over a 20-year broadcast career with all the NFL partners through the years, Fox, ESPN, all those things. So I think that those overall experiences, not only as a student athlete, not only as a recruited student athlete, but I've raised a couple student athletes. My son went to Ohio State on scholarship. My daughter played soccer at Florida State after spending their careers, high school careers in the state of Florida at St. Thomas Aquinas. So all those things, a high school coach for 8 years. So all those things really, my life's history in football is really my speaking points for all the things that we talk about.
The you mentioned the portal earlier, and we don't have a portal in Pop Warner, but we do see some of the attitudes towards the portal in terms of having kids want to pick and choose and move from program to program, and as well as we what I'm looking at from an NIL standpoint, I'm sure you're dealing with that as well, is not necessarily the success kids are having from an NIL standpoint in high school or even youth. It's just that the attempts to build that brand and build that brand that can be leveraged outside off the field. Do you feel like the portal and NIL, has that been a net positive overall for these kids in these programs? And how, like, do you have any insight on kids coming up, how that's impacting them?
Well, it's definitely impacting kids coming up. I think that, well, now college is caught up where high schools have been for a long time, depending on what state you're in. Here in Florida, it becomes very, very tricky. But man, kids jump around schools. They do two or three schools in high school. So now the portal being open, that's not anything new to them. So they have adapted, to the new rules. I think overall, when kids are being compensated, um, that yes, obviously there was a pool of money for a long, long time. It's amazing now the NCAA found that, hey, we got all this money now we can share it. They always claimed to be broke before, but we knew that was always what the game was. They're going to exploit the athlete. utilize their services just like workers, but they're not going to be paid employees of the universities or of the NCAA. So I think overall, it has helped this group of athletes, to monetize their likenesses and images. Yes.
The one thing that I found interesting in the book you wrote, and I'm talking about Going Deep, book you published about 10 years ago, and you had mentioned that one of the keys to a long career or career longevity, and you played 16 years yourself, was really playing for the love of the game and not necessarily for the self-satisfaction around the game. Um, what, how do you, if you're looking at some character development of kids to coming up from the youth level, how can you instill that attitude, or how do you coach a kid to play for the right reasons?
Well, the first thing you have to realize where kids are. Um, I was doing a youth football camp with Larry Fitzgerald in Minnesota this past week, and also did some work with Justin Jefferson on the field there with the Vikings and some other kids transitioning from high school into college. But what's amazing to me is these parents, they make up these roadmaps for these kids of where they're going to be going and how they're going to be in D1 or how they're going to be in the NFL. And you need to just, there was a quarterback in particular. I told the dad, you need to let him be 11-year-old. He said, like, there's a company that's doing all these combine drills. And I said, man, God willing, he's probably not going to ever make it to the combine. Like, well, why are we going to waste all this time doing stuff that in 10 years, if he's good enough, he'll be able to pick up the drills the same way other people do. So I think parents get way ahead of the kids and they get way into the future compared to football and sport is a way for young people to develop disciplines, develop how do I take coaching, how do I be on a team, how do I react to winning and losing, the overall physical training. That should be a part of their life as long as they're living. So there's so many other things that are really, really more important than you trying to get your son into a Division 1. So keep everything in proper perspective. All right.
Yeah.
There's 350 million people that have ever played football at any level, anywhere in the world. That's little league, high school, pro. 350 million. There's 350 million people. There's only 28,000 that played in the NFL. There's only 14,000 of us that played more than 4 years. There's only 384 of us in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, like, slow your roll. Like, slow down. Only a few people make it. All right. Let's take advantage of the ecosystem, the coaching, the disciplines, all those things that should help these young people be better boys, girls, young boys, young ladies.
No, that's great. And one of the things that we constantly deal with is there's still a chance. There's still that desire for a kid to make it that to that level, whether it's to the next level and starring on the high school team, college, and obviously the pros. You mentioned Larry Fitzgerald previously, and I find it really interesting, and I'm kind of curious about your input on him because you first met him as a 14-year-old when he was the age of a lot of Pop Warner athletes. And
Mhm.
is there anything special that you saw in him as a 14-year-old and his attitude or approach to the game that other kids could take from?
Well, one of the things, not only just the ability that set Larry apart. I mean, Larry was a five-star athlete in high school. You could tell he had a lot of traits that make you good as a wide receiver. Huge hands, catch the ball, love to be around football, working in football. He was our ball boy for a number of years. And just the way he went about that, like you knew that he really had a chance to be different. I don't try to pin on people. And even at that time, his dad would ask, do you think he has a chance to be a pro? And even Larry, we would talk about, he would ask questions about pro football, and I would tell him to concentrate on where he is. We're not going to talk about pro football. And I said, that's not going to slow up your development. So his overall love for the game and wanting to be good at the game. And then the third thing is you got to be willing to work at it. See, the kids say, "Oh, man, I love the game. Oh, I want to be good at the game," but they're not willing to work at it. And that's what, makes Larry, he's the trifecta. That's the reason why he's a all-time great player.
The you mentioned him being a five-star athlete, and you used the word athlete there, and I'm going to go back and ask you a question about your childhood. I know you came up with your first love with basketball. You ended up playing football because you obviously were good at it, but I think the point is you played football. And in today's environment, so many kids get so focused on one sport. Sport specialization is a big thing right
Mhm.
now. And we've always tried to encourage kids to play other sports in addition to football just to develop the skills. But how does what's your take on playing multiple sports and how do some skills from other sports might transfer into football?
Well, I do believe other sports do help transfer some of the skills into it, but um, I can represent both sides of this argument. I do believe, though, the kids are not talented enough to be able to play multiple sports. The ones that can do it, they're natural. You can see them do it. But if you're a marginal player in one sport, it's like being a switch hitter. All right. You're a marginal switch hitter. You're a marginal left and right. Like you got to make up your mind because you're losing thousands and thousands of reps that other kids are getting that are only playing one sport. So if you're competing against kids all over the United States and all over the world, and you're playing basketball and you're playing baseball, and then they're just doing all the subsequent training for football, who do you think is going to be better in the end? See, so I understand, but you only have so many hours in a day. You only have so many resources. And on paper, it seems good. Oh, yeah, play another sport. Cris Carter did it. It's not that easy. And these other sports are hard to play. So the one thing about sports is how do I have confidence? So how do I play two sports? Neither one of them I'm really good at and never have any confidence. So this argument that I'm going to steer myself to one sport, no, it makes sense because now you can really be able to focus and try to bring out the best in that athlete. If you want to play multiple sports, I can argue that, but it's not better than playing one single sport because if this person, it says doing anything to be an expert, you need 10,000 reps at it. Well, how the heck are you going to ever get that? So all those people out there saying, "Oh no, don't specialize. Hey, you should do this and you should do that." Do you know how hard it is to be good at something? And then so now you're putting them in a sport that they're marginal at. That's not fun because it's still the same work, but I'm not good at it. So we're giving kids a lot of bad advice on what they should be doing based on what we feel, and it's not the right thing.
Okay,
It's
that's fair.
really not the right
Yeah, we've always at Pop Warner we're really evaluating spring tackle. Spring tackle's been a really booming. It's been growing. So is 7v7, and that's something that we have to take into consideration for our future. But when you think about your players at Florida Atlantic, are you seeing a lot of kids coming out of that single sport um, uh, youth development, or have there been
I
much?
mean, we still have kids when you're in a high school. And most of the kids aren't Division I kids. So you might be good at basketball, like that might be your sport, but you're good enough and you got a couple of buddies on the baseball team. So you go out and play some baseball so you can hang out with them and be with them. So we still get both. There's still always going to be kids playing both sports because they're good enough athletes too, and where they come from. Everybody's not from some big city, some big high school. There's a lot of small town people, man. And in those small towns, guess what? You can play a couple sports. But if a kid from Miami is only playing football and you're up somewhere in the Northeast or out West and you're playing all these other sports, you're not going to be better than him.
That's fair. All right. I got it. Hey, I want to talk about your career a little bit. One of the things I took away from it is just, and it goes back to being a team, being a teammate. I know when you came into the league, you gave a lot of credit to your teammates in Philadelphia, particularly Mike Quick, about kind of taking you under his wing and kind of being a mentor and helping you get acclimated to the game. And then as your story unfolded, you did the same for Jake Reed and then Randy Moss. And I think it really speaks to a lot about being a teammate and how you if a teammate of yours succeeds, you can succeed. And I think you made that statement in your book. So, and just talk a little bit about that and like what a kid can take away from that conversation, just in light of like being a teammate and then how a team would function.
Right. The higher level you play at, and most people don't realize this because they don't get behind high school athletics, the tighter the bond becomes in the locker room. So once you get to the NFL, To me, I saw a version of that at Ohio State where the older players really took the younger players under their wing, so that their transition, would be better. And knowing that that's the toughest transition come from a high school athlete, typically a star athlete or a really good athlete, dominant athlete, to being, man, marginal to, man, can I make it here? And all those things. So I think that, when you start doing that, and then now you're finally at the big show, the NFL, immediately, like when you come into the locker room, you realize these are not kids. Like these are grown men. Like they're playing for millions of dollars. But there's a strong brotherhood. And I would say that definitely I'm closer to the players that I played with in the pros. Now I played, so long in the pros, but the things you go through, they're grown up things compared to kid things from college. And the brotherhood, is forever, and it's so rare. Like I said, there's only 28,000 people. So when you see a guy that played in the NFL, you're like, hey man, what's up, man? Like, because you have an understanding of each other that other people don't have, the general population doesn't have. So the fact that I'm going to take care of a younger player is the same thing that I came into. And I always wanted to, as Woody Hayes would say, pay it forward and give them an opportunity to be able to learn the game, because there's so many nuances. There's so many little tricks. There's so many little real shortcuts that, that if you have a veteran player that he can help you, and that becomes very, very important in your development. And that could change your whole career.
You had a lot of teammates throughout your career. You've been a teammate, obviously. And what teammates had the biggest influence on you throughout your career?
You had mentioned Mike Quick there in Philadelphia. Mike Quick was an amazing wide receiver. He had several Pro Bowls early in his career, ended up having knee injuries, and that ended up shortening his greatness of his career. Still a great man. Him and I try to play golf once a year together. I think he's in his last year announcing as an announcer for the Eagles. Does an amazing job. I think he was going to quit last year, but they won the Super Bowl. I think he's coming back. But Mike's an amazing guy. Reggie White was there. He really helped me out a lot. Randall Cunningham, I had him there in Philadelphia. Also, got him a couple of years back in Minnesota. Keith Byers, he's my teammate from Ohio State. But then as a rookie, he was in the locker room in Philadelphia. So he helped me in two locker rooms, in the Ohio State locker room. Him and Pepper Johnson really helped me, and Mike Tomczak, Jim Lachey. And then when I got to the Eagles, Keith Byers looked after me. So, to me, all these things were done for me. So I thought that it only made sense for me to create these types of opportunities for other young players.
Hey all, so just when you thought your fall season could be over, you can get the team together for an exciting new flag football tournament. For the first time, Pop Warner is partnering with NFL Flag to host a national flag football event. The Crown Classic will take place in Charlotte, North Carolina this December 12th and 13th, with divisions across many age groups, both co-ed and girls. Registration opens September 2nd. For more information, check out popwarner.com. Now back to the episode. One of the things that I noticed in terms of your career is the coaches you've had around you and the support you've had from those coaches. It's you kind of want to be prepared for opportunities. And I think you had an opportunity with Denny Green when he came into the Vikings and opened up the game a little bit. What kind of experience did you have with your coaches, and then how their philosophies kind of matched with your skills and what you wanted to do as a player?
Right. It was amazing. Everywhere I went, from high school to my pro days, they couldn't throw the ball effectively before I got there. And the coaching staff determined, and that happened with Bill Conley in Middletown High School. He decided what we were going to do. He also let me play both ways. Um, and he's the one that really helped me make the decision to play football long term and try to be one of the best at. Well, he's the person that told me he thought that I could be one of the greatest receivers ever. No one else had ever told me that, but my high school coach told me that, and it really helped swing my choices as far as college, and also whether going to play basketball and or football. Um, Drafted by Philadelphia. Then I played with the Vikings. Once I got there, the Vikings couldn't throw the ball effectively. And then we went on a good 10-year, 12-year run. We were one of the top passing teams in the NFL, broke all kinds of records. So, talent has to be curated by coaches. So every day you show up to the field or at the gym, you got to submit your talent to that coach so that that coach can get the best out of you because you don't know what's best for you. You've never done this before. You've never developed before. You've never been at this age before. So you have to build a trust. That's why coaches are so important. That's why the certification Pop Warner goes through as far as the coaches they look at, the background checks, and all those things that they do on people become so critical. I tell parents, say, hey, should my kid play football? I say, yeah, it's the safest time ever. Not only because of the equipment, because the people and the information that we have on the people, the drills and stuff that the coaches have to learn, the certifications. And then now every human being knows what a concussion looks like. So now you put all those things together, football's never been safer than what it is right now.
Yeah. One in your response there, one thing I appreciated about it is you have all these NFL coaches, college coaches, Buddy Ryan, Denny Green, and you gave a shout out to your high school coach. And I think it's important for us as to have coaches that actually give encouragement to kids, dream for these kids so they can be positively influenced for what's in front of them. So, what would your advice be to a youth coach in dealing with a kid that might not have that confidence in himself that you might have the confidence about?
But the thing is, you have to try to show them like a glimpse of what their future can look like, if they do things right. And I try to get kids to understand the football ecosystem and realize that there's so many opportunities in football. And there's so many things that you can learn that are so much beyond tackling, running, throwing, and everything. So the way for a kid to get confidence is for someone to believe in him. And then you got to try to put him in situations where he can gain confidence. But you can't expect to yell at a kid and downgrade a kid and talk down to him and ever expect that kid to have any confidence. One of the things and really being able to coach and be effective is you got to know the canvas for which you're painting on. Like you have to know what kind of family he comes from, what kind of upbringing. Is he raised by his grandmother? Does he have brothers and sisters? Like, what are the dynamics before you go to chewing on this kid after you got off your job and you're not happy with what happened? Like, you need to know people to be able to understand people, to really be able to give them real advice in life. That's what I try to tell people. You can't tell every kid the same thing.
Yeah, what was your experience
Oh,
like playing youth sports, football, basketball?
I mean, I had a dream youth. Like, I couldn't afford to make it to practice. I couldn't afford to catch the city bus. The first team I played on as an 8-year old, my coach Butch Johnson was like, "This is my phone number. Call me. Don't be out there walking to practice. Don't be doing things that are stupid. Football's going to be, you're going to have a future in football." So my first coach, man, it was always hey man, where's Chris at? Can he get to practice? Somebody go pick him up. So coaches are just essential, man, and and especially greatness. There is no one out there that's reached greatness without a coach. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard the story. It's the one story in sports you have not heard. Someone reached the pinnacle and they didn't have a coach. No, that's the way it's meant. That's the way it's supposed to be. And the more you can submit your talent, the more you can open yourself up to being the best version of yourself every single day. And then that's how you reach greatness.
The one thing about our kids, and I'm really interested in your take on this, but give you some context that we host a Pop Warner Super Bowl every year. You might be aware of that, and some of the best teams across the country end up coming to our championship. And there's one winner, and there's going to be multiple teams that lose during that week. And sometimes I'll watch a Super Bowl game. Oftentimes, almost every game I watch, and it's nice to see the joy in a team that wins. And but then there's another team that's just suffering a little bit of a heartbreak. They a lot of times it's the first game they've lost all year. They had high hopes, high expectations, and I think back to those great Vikings teams that you mentioned, and you guys were close a couple times, and You needed to bounce back and come back. You always had those Super Bowl dreams. But you know what? When a kid is going through those emotions of not being able to reach that goal that they set for themselves after coming so close, I mean, how do they deal with those emotions and how they bounce back? How would a kid look forward from that?
Well, one of the things, the kids is, man, you got a lot more days ahead of you. Like, this is not the last game you're ever going to play. Like, your career's not over with. Now, one thing I don't agree with a lot of parents, they don't let kids be kids. Man, if Cris Carter loses a game from the time he was 8 until the time he was 38, because that's the time I played football. Man, I cry, I'm upset. So man, I'm not on that stuff y'all talking about. Oh, don't be upset. Oh, it's gonna be all right. No, I'm not. No, I didn't think that way. And when I went about it, and now I see in my everyday life how it's helped me, attack it. And no matter what, if I have more talent than another person, I realize I can be upset, I can play bad, and this person, but I learned all those things through football. So for me, I tell the kids, these are real, raw emotions. We're going to deal with them. I'm sad too, but it's not the end of the world. We're going to go over there to the concession stand. We're going to get a hot dog. We're going to get a Coke. We're going to get a bag of chips. And we can sit around and talk about it and everything. I don't mind you crying. I said, I don't care if you cry. I'm okay with that because that's real. And guess what? Because you care. We can't make kids send messages, double messages. Oh, we want you to care. But when you lose, that's the first time the kid ever thought they could lose. Was when they lost. And they still think, man, we should have beat that team. Man, we should have beat that dang on team. Man, if I make this play, if I do this like this, like, so that is a part of competitive sports. Now, there's a lot of parents, they say they want their kids to be in competitive sports, but they only want the benefits of it and when it's benefiting their kid. So you can learn just as much from winning as you can from losing. But there's a way to go about it. You got to let kids be kids and you got to let athletes be athletes.
Yeah,
Like
and you go ahead. I mean, so your response
my
is,
dog, I'm having a visitor to my house. My dogs are going crazy, but go ahead.
and I said your response. I couched it as like a losing team in a Super Bowl, but your response is any game that can apply to every game a parent and a kid go to anytime any game a kid loses. I said the number one reason they say kids are dropping out of youth sports is because of the car ride home. And the response you gave hits the car ride home, no matter what game it was. So I appreciate that. And do you what would your advice be to a parent, just generally speaking, not just in a game setting, but just as their approach to their kids in their youth sports?
I got someone delivering mail to my dog. It's actually my son. So that's why they brought it like that.
Oh,
But
okay.
the thing about youth sports, I do believe kids should participate. And I'm willing to live with the results, but I'm there for the traits. I'm there for the practices. I'm there for the instruction. I'm there for when you get the wind knocked out of you, you can't get up, then you get yourself up. I'm there when you're dehydrated. You don't feel like, man, I'm going to be able to make it, and you make it. Because all these things are what happens to you in life. Like, so we're trying to prepare young people for life. And this is the preparation, and life is tough. And some days you lose. But every day when I give my best, so I win. So I can't be a loser when I give him my absolute best. So, that's what I tried to put into the kids, man. And we didn't sign up so that we would win. What we do is we prepare hard as we can, but there's other people out there preparing too. So next week, we're just going to prepare a little bit harder. I'm going to work on my game a little bit harder. My teammates going to work on their game a little bit harder, and we get a little better. You don't like losing, get a little better.
The several years ago, I mentioned your book in the past, previously, but the book I thought it was a great book, a really good history of wide receiver position. You got, are you still a student of the game to that respect?
I have such respect, and people are always coming to me for advice. So I always try to stay up. I have a number of receiver coaches, college and pros that I communicate with. Um, I have a a lot of relationships with guys still playing in the league. Um, I've been involved in a lot of receivers from Ohio State, them coming to Ohio State, involved in their lives and in their overall development. So, I mean, I watch YouTube. I try to watch the latest things out there. I try to watch what people are teaching, especially from a wide receiver standpoint. So, I would say I just did a youth football camp with Larry Fitzgerald. Just worked out at went to high school, college, and several pros. So I still think that, yeah, they didn't give me any instruction. Larry said there's 15 kids. Just work them out. Okay, no problem. Hour and a half later, Larry, you satisfied? Oh, you're the guy. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for a long, long time. So
Are you
try to stay connected.
yeah, we talk a lot here about the evolution of the game in terms of the safety aspect of it, whether it's rule changes at the pro level, at the youth level. Do you have a good pulse on how the game has evolved, whether it's the game in general or the wide receiver position?
Well, the game's safer. I think the technology has allowed the game to continue to evolve. I think that because football has become so popular, there's so many more coaches that embrace the passing game, which opened the game up. And so the game now at all levels is a little more fast moving than it ever has been. And it's also really helped the development of quarterbacks at all levels because kids are throwing the ball at a younger age. So now the NFL, and it's not about the top 10 quarterbacks, but you look at the top 25 quarterbacks, probably the best 25 in the NFL that we've ever had, top to bottom. Like they can throw the football. Like guys that are successful in the NFL, it's not because they can't throw it. It's the other intangibles that they haven't been able to get a grasp on, but it's not arm talent. So I think all those things. I've been involved in rule changes with the NFL with Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent. I get inundated from the NFL league office. I worked there for several years. Um, about rule changes, what we're trying to do, guys transitioning in and out the game. So yes, I'm happy. I'm happy where the game is. I'm not that old guy that's still thinking about the game way, way back in the day. No, I like changes to the game. I think that's why we're the number one sport in North America, pro football. And the way to be able to keep it that way is you got to continue to keep changing.
All right, so a fun question for you. We're recording this and we'll probably publish this at a time a lot of people are doing fantasy football. I don't know if you do fantasy football. Let's just suppose you do. Who's the first wide receiver off your draft board?
Oh, Justin Jefferson.
Okay. That's probably a lot of the answer for a lot of people out there. But all
Well,
right.
him and Jamar Chase are the best two in the NFL.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good receivers, but those two, you said I can have a pick. Justin, I'm very, very close to him. His ties to Minnesota. One of the mentors at NFL Combine. He was in my group. The Vikings ended up drafting him based on a lot of good recommendations. Their scouting department, their general manager, Rick Spielman, and then me knowing him and having worked him out before the draft. So that's why Justin's going to always be in that conversation because he's got the stats to prove it. And his boy Chase with the Bengals is right there. Phenomenal athlete. Both of them work hard at it. Football's important to him.
Do you see the Vikings shirt? Are you still close? Are you still really involved with the Vikings organization?
I I'm close enough. We have a good relationship. They treat me great. Um, I just was up there several days. Um, they've asked me a number of questions through the years and everything. So I like the relationship I have. The Vikings take their history. Um, it's important to them, and I was a part of that history. So the Vikings have made it a point that Cris Carter is important to them.
All right. How do you think the team's going to do this year?
But they got a really good team. I think they're flying under the radar. Their offensive and defensive lines, they really made some improvements through free agency and the draft. So I'm really looking forward to them. And then the JJ McCarthy is a quarterback. He's going to develop, but can he develop fast enough with those other skill guys that they have?
All right, great. Well, I have one last question for you, and I end all my interviews this way. Just put yourself in a position of a coach, or just even as Cris Carter, if you're talking to a Pop Warner team, let's say they're a bunch of 12-year-olds, what are you saying to them as they head into their season?
Well, the one thing is that the only way that we can have a good season is, man, we got to get in good shape. Like, man, we got to run, man. Like the only way we're gonna be able to take the benefits of football is we got to pay the price. Everybody wants to lift up the trophy, but no one wants to do the grunt work. The team that does the grunt work is going to be the ones lifting the trophy. And football is a tough, tough sport. Everybody can't play it. You guys have signed up for it. So you're going to be playing football for the next year. So let's give it our best. Gives ourselves the best chance to be the best version of ourselves every single day. I don't care if that's 8, I don't care if that's 12 or 22. It's about a daily, daily grind and the daily, daily mindset that I want to be good at this. And it's going to take everything that I have to be able to do that.
Perfect. Hey, man, I really appreciate you joining us today. This has been a great conversation. And man, good luck to you. For Pop Warner, I'm your host, Tim Glaze. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This podcast is a production of Pop Warner Little Scholars, the premier national governing body for youth football and cheer and dance. Visit us at popwarner.com.